Welcome back to The Explainer. Okay, let's just jump right in by picturing a scene I think pretty much all of us know all too well. You're walking through a store with your kid, they spot a toy, they ask for it, you say no, and suddenly that asking turns into whining. The whining escalates into shouting, and you can practically feel the eyes of everyone in the aisle burning into you, right? Then you make a deal. You say, look, if you calm down and behave, I will buy it. Instantly, the noise stops. Whew! The toy feels like a very, very small price to pay for peace. But today, we're exploring some fascinating research on what actually happens when gifts shift from loving surprises into expected payments.
Now, validating that store scenario is so important because, let's be honest, caring parents make these quick deals entirely out of the best intentions. Seriously, you might just be trying to protect your family from a massive public meltdown, or maybe you're trying to repair some guilt after working long hours. A toy can feel like a really positive way to connect, especially compared to yelling or threatening. But what I found so fascinating in the research is the shift in the child's mindset here. When a deal solves a 5-minute problem, it might actually be making your next shopping trip much harder. Why? Because the child learns that behavior can be directly exchanged for a product. And suddenly, the core question changes from, what should I do, to, well, what will you buy me?
So why do we rely on this so much? Well, simply put, because it works, and it works fast. A promised toy is immediate and it's concrete. Telling a child to be respectful is kind of this abstract, fuzzy idea to them, but a new action figure, a cool craft kit, that is something they can picture, they can touch it, they can own it. It also perfectly clarifies the power dynamic. Complete the behavior, receive the object. Boom! That absolute clarity produces really rapid cooperation. But here is the crucial point. While it quickly stops the difficult behavior, the child might only be learning the transaction. They learn they get paid to behave, rather than absorbing the actual family value behind the behavior, like, contributing to the home or practicing self-control.
And that brings us to a concept researchers call material parenting. Essentially, this is defined as using goods to express love or to shape a child's behavior. Now, let's look at the data fairly here. 3 different survey studies have found associations between remembered material rewards in childhood and stronger material values later in life. However, because these are surveys, they absolutely do not prove that buying toys directly causes adult materialism. We have to be clear about that. They simply suggest that repeated family messages about possessions might help children learn what goods are supposed to mean in the long run.
This brings us right into the larger scientific debate around rewards. Because, believe it or not, it's not black and white. On one side, we have classic research by Lepper and Deci. They suggest that expected, tangible rewards can actually reduce later free choice motivation, especially if the task was already something the child found interesting. But on the exact other side, researchers like Cameron and Pierce argue that these harmful effects are absolutely not universal. They found that it depends heavily on the rules, the specific tasks, and even how motivation is measured. So, because scientists themselves debate the extent of this impact, the big takeaway here is that you really shouldn't panic over offering one sticker, one small toy, or a planned reward here and there.
So let's look at Section 1, 6 common reward mistakes and how the transactional pattern takes root.
Right, so the risk doesn't come from occasional generosity. It comes from patterns. Let's see how this builds into what we call a transactional pattern by looking at some incredibly common, well-intentioned mistakes. Mistake number 1 is turning every ordinary outing into a purchase. It usually starts super innocently. You say, hey, if you're good at the dentist, we'll stop at the toy store. Totally fine, right? But soon, this kind of snowballs. The child begins asking for a deal before every single trip. Suddenly, a totally normal run to the grocery store starts to feel incomplete to them without a product at the end. Without realizing it, they are being trained to expect a transaction literally just for leaving the house.
Mistake number 2 usually happens right in the heat of the moment, and that's offering a toy after a meltdown has already started. Think about it. If the whining, the screaming, or the refusing has already kicked off, and then you offer a toy in exchange for calm, the child learns a very, very specific lesson. They learn that intense behavior is a highly successful way to start a negotiation. Instead of bargaining while they're escalating, it is far better to hold a short, firm boundary and offer them help leaving the situation. You can always save the teaching for later when everyone is calm.
Moving on to mistake 3, paying for basic family responsibilities. Things like putting shoes away, carrying plates to the sink, or cleaning a shared room. These are just normal parts of participating in a family. When you offer a toy for these basic tasks, kids start to treat household contribution as optional paid work. Now, to be clear, earning rewards for extra, unusual jobs, like, say, washing the car or pulling weeds, is completely fine.
But basic, everyday chores, those shouldn't require a purchase order.
Now, let's look at the timeline for mistake number 4, which is letting the reward grow. It usually looks like this. Week 1, a small toy works absolutely wonders. By week 2, that small toy is kind of boring. By week 3, the child is demanding an expensive video game, and suddenly you feel trapped. But listen, this growth isn't proof that your child is inherently greedy. Not at all. Rewards simply lose value as they become familiar. Your child is quite literally just learning how to negotiate. If refusing a small toy leads to a better offer from you, well, waiting for that better offer makes complete logical sense to them.
Mistake 5 is a deeply emotional one, mixing gifts with parental approval. Imagine a scenario where one child wins a game and gets a gift, while the sibling who loses gets nothing. Or maybe a high grade earns a brand new device, but a lower grade brings only disappointment and empty hands. Over time, possessions can actually start to feel like literal proof of parental pride and love. We really want to keep our affection unconditional, so our kids don't start equating their personal worth with the size of the gift they receive. And finally, mistake 6 is using toys to repair guilt. Say you have to miss a school event, or you travel a lot for work, and you always return with a bag of gifts. Obviously, gifts can be a loving gesture, for sure. But if objects repeatedly replace a genuine apology, or active listening, or just quality time, the child starts to learn that emotional hurt is simply repaired by buying things.
So how do you even know if you've fallen into these traps? Well, here are some key signs of a transactional pattern. You might hear them ask, "So what do I get?" before doing completely ordinary tasks. Or they might complain a toy isn't big enough, rush through tasks with minimum effort just to grab the prize, or even flat out refuse to behave unless a reward is explicitly named. Now, if you are seeing this at home, take a deep breath. Seriously, it does not mean your child is spoiled. It just gently reminds us that this specific pattern has been practiced a lot. And the good news? Practice patterns can absolutely be changed.
We can see how to change that pattern using a really simple bedtime scenario. On the left side here, we see the transactional approach. Clean everything now and I'll buy you a toy. Notice how the focus instantly shifts to price and negotiation. And if the child simply refuses the deal, well, the room stays messy. But take a look at the supportive approach on the right. Toys and bins before story time. The focus here is entirely on the skill and the routine. The boundary is super clear, and if they struggle with it, the parent offers help or maybe a fun choice like picking the cleanup music. The end result? A clean room without having to buy a single object. Which brings us to Section 2, the shift plan, moving from buying behavior to building it.
So how do we actually make this supportive approach our default setting? We can use what's called the SHFT plan. It's a great, non-judgmental framework that brings us right back to unconditional connection. Step 1 is S. Separate gifts from obedience. Give those birthday, holiday, and random surprise gifts simply as gifts. Try not to attach them to ordinary behavior after the fact. Step 2 is H. Hold the boundary before offering a product. State very clearly what needs to happen, what choices are available, and what help you can offer before a problem even starts.
Next up is Step 3, I. Identify the missing skill. If your child is struggling, break the behavior down for a second. Ask yourself, do they need a visual routine, a timer, or maybe just some practice when they're actually calm? Then we have Step 4, F. Fade established systems gradually. Listen, if you currently rely on toys to get things done, do not just stop cold turkey. That's a recipe for disaster. Slowly reduce the frequency. Make the rewards a bit smaller over time and pair them with natural feedback.
And finally, Step 5 is T. Tie the behavior to meaning. You want to connect the action to how it actually helps the family. For example, saying, "Hey, when our backpacks are ready tonight, our morning is so much calmer." This builds intrinsic motivation, the kind of internal drive that survives perfectly well even when there's absolutely no toy on the table. And when you do give a gift just for the pure joy of giving, here is a wonderfully warm, exact phrase you can use. You say, "This is a gift because I thought of you. You do not owe me behavior for it." Isn't that great? It perfectly separates true unconditional giving from a behavioral payment.
Now, let's be completely clear here. There are absolutely times when tangible rewards are entirely reasonable. Small, planned rewards can be incredibly useful when you're beginning a difficult new behavior, when a child is tolerating a short-term medical task, or as part of a professional behavior plan, like applied behavior analysis.
The key is that these rewards are temporary and paired with actual skill teaching. And a really vital note here, if your child is on a professionally designed reinforcement plan, never discontinue it suddenly just because of a general parenting tip you heard on an explainer. Always consult your specialist first.
Let's move into Section 3, a 7-day family reset, breaking the transactional pattern without judgment.
For everyday situations, here is a highly realistic action plan that you can start right now without feeling totally overwhelmed. For 1 week, just observe. Step 1, write down every single promised toy deal you make. No judgment here, you're just looking for the patterns. Step 2, choose just one repeated deal to change. And Step 3, replace the product in that specific deal with genuine parental support. This could look like offering a choice, setting up a checklist, or just giving your time to help them practice the routine. And before that challenging situation pops up again, you can use these exact calm words to gracefully reset the expectations. We are not buying a toy for this anymore. I will help you practice the routine. Notice what's happening there. You are holding the boundary, but you are also offering your connection and your support at the exact same time.
So if there is one crucial point to take away from this explainer, it's your first step for today. Find just one "if you behave, I will buy" sentence in your daily routine. Take that sentence and replace it with a clear boundary and the actual support your child needs to succeed. Really, it's just about letting gifts return to being loving gifts rather than behavioral invoices.
Look, toys are not the enemy, and generosity is absolutely not the problem. But I want to leave you with this provocative question to really reflect on. Are your rewards currently carrying the full weight of motivation, love, and repair in your home? By using the empathetic tools we've discussed today, you can lift that heavy weight right off of the toys and put it back where it truly belongs, in your family's connection. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you next time.